watch a few things to do assignments with what we watch when I'm gone. But I was going to do an in-class essay, give you a question and do that during the week. I was gone, and then I decided that might not be a good idea because I need to be here to answer questions and do that kind of thing. And so I'm going to do this for the your first essay in class. Mr. Sims will give you the essay question on Thursday or Friday. So you have a choice of a couple essays. Then when you come in Monday, you write. That sound good? No, it doesn't.
Quick question.
So you just got it next week, or you got it next 2 weeks?
No, just next week. So Monday when I get back, you'll write. Yeah.
So he's gonna like give us like all the essay questions, and we pick one, then write it on.
Yeah, I think I'm going to give you 2 essay choices.
And then we just go home and like study it.
Yeah. So when you come in, you're ready to write. And yes, it's short period, so you got to get done.
Where are you going?
Where am I going? Saved America. Saved Americas again. You know, I just give, and I give, and I give. Don't I? Does anyone thank me? Can't tell you, it's CIA. I'm going to New York City.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I'm going to New York City.
Is it just for vacation?
Oh, I know, I'm working. But it's for you. It's for kids. For students, it's for America. It's vacation. My wife has to go for a workshop for a couple days. So I'm going to take advantage of it and go down and say, let's see.
Are you going to New York City? You should go see An American in Paris.
No.
It's amazing.
Nah. I want American stuff.
That is so good.
Actually, we looked at that. We looked at a few places.
Hamilton? Are you going to Hamilton?
No, we could not go. It's sold out.
Yeah. My
I want to go down.
second conductor is like a family friend of mine. And when I was in
Oh, well,
New York,
thanks for getting me tickets.
so he couldn't even get me tickets when I was in New York.
Yeah, it was sold out. So we're not.
Michelle Obama went to it when it was in like the off-Broadway theater.
Yeah, I guess it's fantastic. Where did we finish yesterday? But yeah, I do want to see it, but
It's yeah. He showed me some videos where it's good.
Pretty compromising. The executive.
who elects the executive?
Electoral college.
Electoral college. How many electorates does Montana have?
3,
Why?
because it's our senators and our house combined.
Always that.
What's that?
You're gonna roll now. Okay, and very good. And who elects, according to the Great Compromise, who elects senators?
Chosen state assemblies.
State assemblies choose. Now it's the people. Who chooses House? Members of the House.
The voters.
How many year term for the House?
2.
2. For the Senate? 6.
Why did you put that in?
Just do it.
Excuse me, I'm just.
Oh, I know. And, I didn't tell you the ages. How old can you be to be at the House? Member of the House? 40. 25. Senate, 30. President, 35. House and the Senate, you have to be a citizen. For the president, you have to be born a citizen. You have to be born a citizen. And so, and that works if your parents are out of the country and you're born, but since your parents are citizens, you're a citizen. So, all right. So, electoral college. 3, do we say majority win? Did I get to that? Oh, who's the father of the Constitution?
Madison.
Yeah. What did we finish? Exactly.
Just got chosen by electoral college and he's a member of
Okay. And what it is, it's the majority. Whoever gets the majority in the electoral college wins the presidency. Whoever gets the majority. And it's winner take all in each state. And write down, did I say? Write down state assemblies choose the electors. State assemblies choose the electors. I gotta do something really quick. All right, state electors are chosen by the state assemblies. And so The whole idea was, what Madison was thinking, is when he came up with this idea, is that they choose the best people who would go to Washington, D.C., and then they would vote. And the odds are, in fact, rarely would anybody get the majority. And if nobody gets a majority or it's tied, it goes to the House. And the House of Representatives would decide. And Madison assumed that's what would happen in every election. In fact, the big reason why they decided on electoral college with majority take all was to make sure that that first election, where there was no House, no Senate, no nothing, that first election, Madison was thinking, along with everybody else at that constitutional convention, one man has got to be elected president. Who? Yeah, they had to have Washington, that stable figure that could be the good leader necessary for the country to survive, because it barely did those years. So it needs somebody like that, somebody like Washington. And so the assumption was Washington will be elected president. After that, it will always go to the House, and eventually the Electoral College would be removed. They'd amend the Constitution and get rid of it. That was his assumption. Now, a couple things about this. First off, clearly, that didn't happen. The Electoral College still picks the presidents. Next, beginning in the 1820s, and by the end of Reconstruction, so by about 1876, state assemblies allowed for the voters to choose the electors. So the voters of each state will choose it. And what virtually every state does, Maine and Nebraska are a little bit different, but basically every state, it's winner take all. And so whomever wins the most votes, whoever wins the most votes in the state gets all the electors. So in Montana in 2012, who won Montana's 3 electors? All 3. Who ran for president in 2012?
Okay. No.
That was 4 years ago. Obviously Obama, because he's still president. He was reelected, but who was a Republican?
What's his name?
Yeah, what's his name?
Romney.
Yeah, Mitt Romney. Well, Montana, more people voted for Romney than Obama. So Romney got all 3 electors in the state of Montana. All 3. Now, if you look at Montana, first off, I think I did tell you this. Per voter, Montana's overrepresented. We are represented more than other states. Most other states.
Just by size.
Yeah, because our population is so small, and because they count 2 senators to be electors, we get overrepresented. If it was purely about population, we'd only have 1. But we have 3. California's got 55. I know that sounds like a lot more, and it is, but per voter, Montana is actually more represented. This does favor small states again, like the Senate does. And so, it's winner take all. So in California, Obama got about 60% of the vote, so we got all 55. So this is winner take all. All the elections are. In the state assembly for Senate, and then when it went to the people, winner take all. You either get the most votes or you're not elected. House, same thing. Elections in the United States are winner take all. A lot of countries, it's proportional. They have representation based upon the percentage of votes you get. Now we'll come back to why that's important. But there are 538 electors in the United States. I said yesterday, 435 members of the House, 100 members of the Senate, right? And then DC gets 3. District of Columbia is still a territory technically, but they gave them 3 electoral votes. Oh my God, what's 71? I think it was. Yeah, 3 electoral votes. That covers.
So they're just telling them what electorals.
Yeah, but their population is about the same. So how many votes do you need to be president?
More than half. I don't know.
What if you get 269?
Then It goes to the House.
Exactly, it goes to the House. You need 270 to be elected.
What does the vice president do if he breaks some ties?
In the Senate,
Senate?
VP, that's his only constitutional function, except for being the angel of death, waiting for the
It
president.
would be so sad if you lost by one vote.
Well, that's what happened. It's happened a few times. And here's the thing. By one vote in the electoral college, you mean? Yeah, it's happened. It's happened.
That's so close.
So, it is possible to be elected president in the electoral college, yet have a majority of the people want another person for the president. And it's happened a number of times in the history of the United States, where the majority of people wanted one person, yet somebody else won the electoral college. It's happened in your lifetime. When?
Didn't it happen like recently?
In your lifetime.
Didn't it happen at the last election? 2 years ago?
This is Bush.
Yeah. Al Gore in 2000, Al Gore won the popular vote by over 1 million votes. Yet because of some big irregularities in Florida, Bush was elected in the electoral college. And it's happened before, and it's been really close like that, but it's gonna happen. In fact, it's conceivable. Remember, it's winner take all. And so, just imagine somebody running for president, so Trump. When Trump, before his election, Trump wins in California by 1 vote. Texas by 1, you get the gist? Florida, Pennsylvania, New York, Ohio, Michigan, Illinois, all by 1 vote, right? And he doesn't get a vote in any other state. Any other votes, they'd still be elected president. Because of the electoral college.
Wait, what? Can you say that one more time? Can you say that one more time?
Remember, it goes by electoral college. And so let's say Trump wins by 1 vote in California, so he gets all the electors here.
Yeah.
1 vote in Texas, gets all the electors, and so on. Here, these states. See that?
Yeah.
Those states. He wins by 1 vote, and then nobody else in the country votes for him. He's still elected president.
Oh, because he has the most electors, but most of them didn't vote for him.
Yeah, because he has this. Those states are not giving the majority.
That's what happened with Bush. and
Well, Bush,
Gore.
in a way, but that Bush and Gore was more like, it was a lot closer voted, but Gore got about 1 billion more votes. People voted for electors pledged to him. So that's pretty,
How does that work though? Because then the people don't really have these.
remember what I told you? They wanted a wall of separation between the voters, the people, and the government. This is not a democracy, and it was never meant to be one. So people try to say, oh, it's a democracy. No, it wasn't. And so you have all that happening with that for the Electoral College. Well, this leads to a number of really interesting little factors because it's winner take all. Now, Madison assumed that there'd be a bunch of people running. They'd split the vote up and go to the House. But think about it in a winner take all election. If you have a bunch of people voting, it splits up the vote, doesn't it? So what do people begin to do? Narrow it down. And if it's winner take all, it naturally narrows down to how many? How many? 2. Well, 1 winner, but we get 2. And that is why we have 2 parties. Winner take all always narrows down to 2. Because think about, let's say we have 2 parties and a 3rd person jumps in the race. Well, that 3rd person is going to take votes away from one of the other 2. For example, in 2000, Ralph Nader ran for the Green Party. It's a very small party because since it's winner take all, the other parties rarely get anything more than just a tiny percentage of the vote because they're not going to win. Well, Ralph Nader of the Green Party ended up, people thought he might get 8 or 9%, he got 3%. And the reason why that's a big deal is because virtually everybody who voted for Nader, if he wasn't in the race, they would have voted for Gore. Certainly. Oh, no doubt. I mean, all this would have taken is 100 votes, probably. Florida to make a difference, but yeah, Mayor wasn't the race, Gore would have been president, no doubt. And so third parties take away votes from somebody else, and that's why a lot of people might like Nader, but a lot of them realize, if I vote for Nader, I'm basically voting for Bush. It happens here in Montana a lot because libertarians take away votes from Republicans. And libertarians always get like 3 or 4% in the state of Montana. So if libertarians getting 3 or 4%, that's helping the Democrat. It almost certainly helped Governor Bullock and Senator Tester. No doubt about it. And so that's why we have a two-party state. And so people say, God, I hate these parties. Why is there more parties? And I agree with some things in the party, but I don't agree with all of them. Well, this is why. Always. It always narrows down to 2. Always.
How many people are running for the presidency?
I don't know, 40, 50.
Really?
You know what other? Republicans have a bunch, and it used to not be like this. In your lifetime, they start running a year and a half before. It wasn't like this before. It's insanity.
Well, there's so many Republicans.
Yeah, there's now 15. 2 just dropped out. There's now 15. Right.
When is the election, November?
Of next year.
Of next? When was it this year?
Every 4 years is a presidential election, and that's on even years. Every 2 years, they call the midterm election. A third of all senators are elected every 2 years, all members of the House. And in the US, it's a big deal. A presidential election year, our voting numbers are really low. It's embarrassing for our country. But we get a little bit over 50% vote in presidential elections, 50% of the eligible population. It's embarrassing. Midterm elections, it's maybe a third of the people. I find that fascinating that so many people would just say, I trust others to decide so much for me. I trust you. It's kind of scary in a way. But, and young people are the worst. They just don't vote. I mean, once you get 18.
Oh, it's like
Yeah, 18 to 35, just they don't vote.
they just don't care.
They're stupid.
That works too.
If they don't care, they're stupid. I'm not going to mince words there. But back to this. That's how come we have a two-party state. And that's why the Electoral College state. All the flaws in the Electoral College, once it began to divide up into 2 parties, everybody take out that Federalist number 10 I gave you. Everybody take that out very quickly. Right there, yeah. Federalist number 10. It's right on top. And if you look at the third, you have yours? Yeah. The third paragraph in the second column, this is what Madison was thinking, or at least its selling point of what kind of people would he. Excuse me, that made me cough. What kind of people would run for president, or for any of the representatives in this new republic? What kind of people? Patriots.
Can you say the question again?
Huh?
Can you say the question again?
What kind of people did he say would be elected to this new republic? What kind of people? Tiffany's looking at me, so she must know one. Say it again. Yeah, the very much elite. But what about these elite would make them?
Had their wisdom and the true interest of the country, whose patriotism and love of justice would at least would be least likely to sacrifice.
So it's kind of a weird saying.
Someone who like won't give up the country.
It's well, what?
Give up on the country.
Partially, but not just give up with the country. What's the only thing they care about?
Country.
Yeah, and for everybody else. They're true patriots who care only about somebody else. And what else are they?
Who loves themselves.
No, they care about others.
Oh, well. They,
Now, don't forget, we're reading what Madison is saying
War.
will be a reason to vote for the Constitution. They're the most wise people. He's not going to say they're going to be greedy people who are going to rob from you once they become elected. No, he's not going to say that. He's going to say only the best and the brightest, the most patriotic, the most honest people will be elected. If we have a democracy, it'll be just one of those hooligans or ruffians or someone who could rile up the crowd. No, we'll pick the best. People like whom?
Washington.
not just Washington.
Himself.
Yes, people like
Was he, what number president was he?
fourth. He'd be the fourth after Jefferson. And that's what he's saying. So that's the kind of people. So that's what he thought would happen. He thought they could never get a majority because it'd be like they'd be a calling of the men, the best men. They would come and they choose me. And they wouldn't disagree because all they care about is the country. Now, of course, people disagree. And Madison was using as one of the positives of this is that, well, what is the title of this? When you read a document, that's the first thing you got to look at. If you didn't look at it, you're in trouble. I don't mean trouble like you're going to get, you're going to have to go sit in the corner. No, you're in trouble understanding the document. What does it say?
The violence of faction.
The violence of faction. Clearly, the violence of faction means he doesn't like factions. What's a faction? If today we wouldn't call it a faction, what would we call it? Our political parties. And what he's saying is, we won't have political parties because we'll all agree. But if we allow you bunch of hooligans and thugs in there, then we'll break up and it will just be a disaster. Madison said no political parties. Ironically, he became a leading member of one of the first political parties when he realized we do have disagreements. And if I'm alone disagreeing, who's going to listen to me?
No.
I need allies. Madison said no political parties. Then he would quickly discover you can't have a republic if you don't have political parties. The problem is we only have two because it's winner take all. Now don't get me wrong. If it's proportional, you can have other problems. In Italy, there's over 50 major political parties. There's problems there. And it becomes an issue. But they kind of realize that right away. There's flaws with the system in the United States government. After World War II, the United States helped set up governments in certain areas. Trust me, they did not set up this government. No, too inefficient. They set up a parliamentary system. That's what they set up. They didn't want it, nobody wants this.
So why don't we change?
Hmm?
Why not change that?
We can't change the electoral college. So we couldn't change the government.
Why didn't you change to?
We can't change the electoral college. So we couldn't get enough people just to make that minor change. So you wouldn't get enough people to change.
Why couldn't you change?
And there's good things about our system, but it's really flawed.
Why couldn't you change the constitution?
Have we? No one likes it.
Is it in the constitution? If you change the constitution.
How do you change the Constitution? It has to pass 2/3 on the House and the Senate. Then it has to get through the state assemblies of 3/4 of the states. We can't even vote in the United States to give women equal rights. Yeah, that women are not guaranteed equal rights under the Constitution, and they couldn't get that passed. So you can't. It's impossible. It's almost impossible to change.
There's a movie about suffrage act about women's rights in England that looks really good.
Okay, so.
She's a character.
Well, I know, but we're moving on. All right, so once we got past that big deal of this, that great compromise, okay, that set the basis of the government. It's Madison's format. And there are flaws in it. There's some really good things about it. But the big thing was, it's the first time it's really been done, where a single written document laid out the government. They tried the articles, but it was too vague. Britain doesn't have a constitution. Britain has a series of documents that they kind of lump together and say the Constitution. This is a big deal. But then, slavery. Slavery hung over the table. Nobody wanted to talk about slavery. Well, now they had to. And there were certain things they had to do. First off, it never quite uses the word slavery, but it makes it very clear that property will be protected and slavery is property. And fugitive slaves, that's the term that they would give for runaway slaves, must be returned. That's in the Constitution. It is very clear. Wait.
So fugitive slaves are what?
Runaway slaves.
Yeah.
So let's say they run away from a plantation in Virginia and they run up to Massachusetts. Massachusetts is supposed to use their police force to return that slave.
That's in the Constitution.
Yes. Fugitive slaves must be returned. But it has to be done by the states, and the states didn't always do that. But now, the big thing is population. And we're coming up to what's called the 3/5 compromise. And the 3/5 compromise was the issue of what do we count slaves? Or how do we count slaves? The population. Now I repeat, slaves are slaves. Obviously, slaves aren't going to vote. They can't run for office. They're slaves. But do they count towards population? Every 10 years, it is mandated by the Constitution that there is a census. For obvious reasons. For representation in the House and therefore the Electoral College. So, population towards representation. What section of the country, remember sectionalism, what section of the country, representatives from there said, we want slaves to be counted as people towards representation so we get more representatives? Yes. The South wanted it to be counted by, want slaves to be counted. But there's another thing. This is pre-capitalism. This is pre-industrial revolution. Our concept of an income tax and how people make money would have been foreign to them. You know, they still tax, but it's different. And one of the ways they thought taxation was done, they kind of tried in the Declaration or the Articles of the Confederation, was called direct taxation. And what it was is that the states would tax their own people and they give money to the federal government according to their population. Direct taxation by population. So, for example, Pennsylvania would send a lot more by direct taxation than Rhode Island. That's why they thought they would fund the federal government. What section of the country wanted slaves to be counted as population for direct taxation?
The North.
South.
Hmm?
Isn't it still the South?
No, you're right.
The North?
What did I ask?
Which one
Part of it was wanted.
Yeah, which one wanted slaves to be counted towards direct taxation? And you said it.
The North?
Yes. Well, I asked a question, and then it dawned on me. I asked the question without really knowing if I was asking which one didn't want it or wanted it. I'm sorry I gave you the dumb look. You were right. I said it without thinking. That's one problem. You start thinking about what I'm going to say next. Yeah. The North wanted to count towards direct taxation, but not representation. The South wanted to count towards representation, but not taxation. Thus, the compromise. Slaves will be counted. Actually, what it says, for every five slaves will count as 3 towards your population. So if you have 500 slaves in your state, that means you have 300 people towards your population. So it's a compromise. That's where you get the 3/5 compromise. Now, by saying that, we got another really big section of the Constitution that even though it doesn't say slavery, it's constitutionally protected. We're going to count them as people, so they're slaves. But not as much people, so slavery is in the Constitution and it's property you got to return. I mean, slavery is protected in the Constitution. Who benefited? Which section, North or South? In the long run.
North. South.
It's the North or the South.
Wait, benefited for, wait.
Benefited from the 3/5 compromise.
Yes,
Yes, exactly.
because the South got the representation and the North got the direct taxation.
Except for one thing. That never happened.
Why didn't you have?
They never did it because they collected enough on tariffs and selling off federal government land. So they never did direct taxation, so this solely benefited the South. And there are still some states that had a few slaves in the North. But by 1820, there were virtually no slaves in the North, except for New Jersey and a couple other places. So in the North, you can imagine how they came to hate the 3/5 compromise. Now, I know this is racist by definition, but to many in the North, they're saying the South has more votes, more representation in Congress and the Electoral College per white voter than we do. I know they're skipping out people that said per white voter, and that's unfair.
Because they're using the population of people who can't vote.
Exactly. Who can't vote and have nothing. And in the North, they began to give it a name. They called it slave power. The 3/5 compromise was slave power. It's not that the slaves have power, it's clearly that the slaveholders have more power. Thomas Jefferson would never have been elected president in the 1800s without slave power. There are so many laws that either became law that helped the South or had to be compromised down because of slave power. The North became to despise slave power. Next, the other big compromise, last one, I'll do it really quick, was over commerce, but it's about slavery. It's commerce, and it's two-part. First part, a big problem in the articles, it couldn't really regulate commerce, international trade and interstate commerce. So, government, they wanted the federal government to be able to regulate commerce, especially interstate commerce. But they wanted to be able to regulate commerce. So, but southern states are worried because they might regulate down the road the slave trade, the international slave trade, or for that matter, interstate slave trade. If they stop the importation of slaves, what happens to the price of slaves? Dramatically. And they thought this will break us. And so, Southerners are saying, we won't allow the federal government to regulate commerce, especially interstate commerce. It ain't gonna happen. So the compromise was this. Can regulate commerce, but they can't touch. No touch. I wrote it like that. The slave trade for 20 years. Can't touch the slave trade for 20 years. Madison would say this pernicious institution should be gone in 20 years and we can move on. Madison, who was a slaveholder. They just thought it's got to go away. We can't continue to have slavery. And actually, in 20 years, so in 1808, 20 years after the Constitution was ratified, the U.S. did ban the slave trade. But the whole world was changing by then, called the Industrial Revolution, and everything would change. And so that is the basic, those are the three big compromises. The Great, 3/5, and the commerce. And then they turn around, this might be my favorite part.
What was the first one?
The Great Compromise. 9 states to ratify. All it takes is 9 states. That should be pretty funny because how many states did it take to ratify or change, amend the articles? Yeah, needed 13, but the big thing is they had to have New York, last thing, Pennsylvania, and Virginia. If they don't get those 3 big states, the U.S. can't survive. So now we're going to have a ratification battle. We'll quick finish that tomorrow. Then we'll do the beginning of the Federalist. We're probably not going to have an essay question tomorrow. I'm going to tell you a brief thing about an outline and brainstorm list and go from there.
So is commerce, trade, import, and export?
Yeah, commerce is any trade. And we have international, which is, offset. From
Yeah, and interstate, so like they could tax online trade coming in and out.
they can tax or just put rules on what is traded.
So
Or for that matter, on companies that trade.
like a lot more like slaves. Like,
Yeah.
Is that what?
They were fearful they might do that.
Okay.
Now, right?
Wall sits.
Okay, I can do that.
And you're first.
What was your?
Oh, no, yours first.
What was your taxation?
Direct taxation, and they thought this way, they would do it. Individual states would collect the taxes. And then they would pay a lump sum to the federal government. And it was, that lump sum would be based on population. So the bigger the population of the state, the more they would pay. Yeah, because then they'd have to pay more taxes. But they wanted to get on this list. Represent, yeah, I didn't know that.
Less money, right? Because the slaves don't pay the tax.
No, it doesn't, the states pay a lot, so. And so
Altogether,
that's,
they would have to- Oh, okay, that's right.
except, so if the population is greater than Virginia, they gotta pay more.
Oh, okay, I didn't understand that.
Yeah, and, but the thing is, you know, that never ever happened.
All right, thank you. Is it a-
How many electors are there?
For what?
Electors in electoral college.